Okay, so here's a quick video on how to turn the original version of the WallyScope into the new version with the new parts that I can send you. I'm going to be speaking rather extemporaneously, so I might forget some important stuff until the end, so please watch this video all the way through before you start. You will need a few tools and things at hand. You will need a paper towel, pliers, preferably a heavy wire cutter. If you don't have that, perhaps a good metal file will do. A Phillips screwdriver and a smaller flathead screwdriver. This one happens to be 4mm, but if you get something in that range, it will do. You will need a 2mm hex key, which is the same size that's used on your cartridge screws, and you'll need some tape. All right, those are the basic needs. Now the parts that are needed for the new assembly are a clip. There's a new aiming bar and aiming mount that slides like this. All right. There's a new 2-inch screw for the bottom plate, and then there's of course the new bottom plate and the new top plate. You will notice entirely missing from this assembly is the coarse focus. We've removed this. We're going to remove this altogether in order to get the microscope down another 1.25 inches or more. The advantage of this new WallyScope is that it allows greater overhang, as you will see. Some of you may have tried to analyze a cartridge while the cartridge is mounted to the tone arm and found you couldn't get close enough. Well, hopefully this allows you to get quite a bit closer. All right, so let's start. That's where we're going. Let's start. First step, remove the aiming bar. The older aiming bar you're not going to be using anymore. Let's remove the camera. Now when you remove this, that lens is going to be sensitive. Just keep that in a dust-free area, out of the way, and do not allow that to get touched by little fingers or anything. Okay, let's start the disassembly process. Let's remove the bottom plate first. First, we'll have to remove this clip, which helps the forward and backward motion. Right on the bottom. Let's just remove these screws completely. You're going to keep these screws. Don't throw them away. And you're going to keep this part. Don't lose that. Put that to the side. Now, we got to remove this screw, but when we do, these nuts are at risk of actually falling out. They're in there kind of loose, so we're going to take a piece of tape and we are going to tape over these nuts so they do not fall out. Okay. Now we can start unscrewing the screw all the way. Okay, slide the whole carriage assembly off. We aren't going to use this anymore. We're not even going to use these fasteners anymore. But do me a favor. The serial number that's on the bottom, please make sure that it's written on your new bottom plate. This one now is garbage. Now let's remove the top plate. We do that by removing these two screws that are clipping the entire top plate to the Z stage. So we're going to get pliers to hold the nut. All right. Save this hardware. We are going to be using it to mount the plate. This part we are not going to use. Do save the washers. We have to remove this clip as well. Keep the screws, keep that clip. Remove this screw entirely. And now this plate will come apart from the stage. Keep that. Now we need to remove this plate from the microscope. All right, remember when I warned you I'd be speaking extemporaneously? Well, I forgot to mention, we do need a 3/32 Allen wrench to get this screw out. So, if you don't have a 3/32, if you want to just break this off, that will do too. Okay, I don't mind that because we do not need to save this screw, and we don't need to save that entire base. Now, if you do get the screw off, some of you might find sliding this off. It slides off, rather difficult, but it'll come. Give it some taps. Tap if you need to with the pliers to get it off. Here we've got the microscope unit all naked, and let's get it off. We're going to need first to undo these screws with the Phillips head. We aren't going to save any of these parts, so if they fly on the floor and land underneath your desk amongst the dust balls, don't worry about it. All right, now getting this thing off is a bit of a fun enterprise. Just keep twisting. You gotta coax it off, but she'll come. Now, this is the reason why I've got the paper towel ready, because you can see all the grease in here. But we do have these two screws we need to get out. My 4mm screwdriver is just enough to get in that hole and get these things out. This, again, is garbage. But now, to keep this grease under control, we are going to have to save those two screws. So just kind of clean that up. These two screws are going to be important. So when you take them out, it might need some real torque to get them out. So get that flathead nice and properly seated before you start turning. We don't want to strip the heads. Again, save those screws. This is greasy in here. We don't need this part. You can see how dirty it is, right? So now just clean that area up. Okay, so here we've got the top plate, bottom plate ready. We've got the new clip ready, and if you get confused with the old clip and the new clip has got a little indentation here, so you'll know which one in case you get them confused. That's the new one that we're going to be using. Now, I like to take that heavy-duty wire clipper and cut at approximately 45-degree angle, get that corner off. Whoops. And that allows you to just get a little bit closer if you need to the cartridge. If you want to actually take a file and get that even further, that's fine. You see I've done that with this one. I filed it off a good deal to get closer because that will get further along in the channel down here. That's the purpose for that, because this is where the plinth is going to hit. The plinth of the turntable. That's why that was done. All right. So now, first let's attach the microscope. And this is my schmutzy one. I don't ship them out in this condition. This is my personal one. To the top plate. Now remember, I told you to save these two screws. Pass them through. This one sometimes needs some coaxing to go in. Oh, there we go. Okay. These are the two screws that were holding the coarse control, the coarse focus control to the microscope itself. Okay. Now let's attach the bottom plate to the lift stage. Remember, keep that tape on there. Now it's simply a matter of sliding it on. And of course the control knob has to be to the rear. So if you can't get them to fit, if this is a little too wide, very simple. Get a regular file, fine-tooth file, down on a flat surface, and the plate that will be the plate on the Z stage that will be going into the bottom plate. We're going to file a little bit of a way, but you got to do it a little bit at a time. We don't want to overdo it. And then we're going to put the edge to the file and do a couple scrapes. All right, nice long pattern, but don't do too much. We're going to do it a little bit at a time and see, is it working? Okay, needs a little bit more, and do it again. All right, is it going to fit now? Yep, looks like it's going to slide nicely. All right, so we don't want it to be too tight, because if it's too tight, then when you adjust the fine focus, it'll be a bit of a kludge in order to get that to work. But we don't want you to wear off too much of this material either, because what will happen if you wear off too much of this material as you change directions with the fine focus, this whole Z assembly will go like this, will rock like this, and we don't want that. Okay, with your new kit, you should have received a 2-inch longer screw for your axis control. It should be fully threaded. If you got the one that's not fully threaded, we would have sent you the wrong one. Let us know, we'll send you the right one. We need the 2-incher right now for the forward, backward focus control. So start threading it through, and once you've gotten it through both of those brass nuts, now those nuts are safe, they're not going to come out, you can remove the tape. Let's slide this carriage forward. Now we got to put a clip on. You've got 2 clips, you've got a tall one and a short one. You're going to use the taller one. On this clip, you'll notice that the hole has one side that is chamfered. The other side is flat. We want the chamfered side out. Okay. Then which screws? We got 2 sets here of hex head screws. One is longer, one set is shorter. You're going to take the longer ones. And just do finger tight, snug is good. Okay, now we can practice that the stage slides nicely. So let's pull it back some. And there it goes. Now let's attach the top plate. So the top plate has one clip that's already integral to the top plate. We want to slide in there as far as it'll go into the clip, and now that hole should be lined up with the threaded hole in the lift stage. You're going to take one of your 1.5-inch screws and pass it through and start threading it. Now be careful, this is not a terribly strong metal, so we don't want any torque force against it. While we're still, maybe you want to use some tape to keep these two together. Now's the time to clip it. Now the clip, it's got 2 sides. The clip is going to allow the aluminum stage to seat right there quite nicely. And we'll take our first screw, pass it through. Some of these are pretty snug fit. Okay, put the washer on, the nut. Now, with the pliers holding the nut, tighten her up. And it's done. Now we're going to put the clip on. So again, it's the shorter clip, and remember there is a chamfered side of that hole and there's a flat. Keep the chamfered side out. Drop in our screws and finger tight snug. Okay. All right, now it's time to put on the camera. Let's make sure your clip is on. Grab the camera. USB port goes up. Slide her in. Now let's test the left-right. As you can see, it's working fine. That's it, you've done it. Now, you might want to just make sure that a couple of your fasteners are nice and snug here and there, and again on the other side, here and there. These should be snug as well, but I don't want you putting too much pressure on those. If you were to take a screwdriver and put too much force on it this way, you could bend these rods, which will make this entire assembly less stable. So when you do try to snug these down, make sure they're snug, have a counter opposing force with the pliers. You'll need that anyway to keep the bar from spinning. There, yeah, just check them all for snugness. And this one needs to come out a little bit in order to get at that screw. We can't get at that screw until we bring it back a bit. Yep, that needed some tightening. That one. And again, holding onto the bar and provide some counter-opposing force, because we do not want to bend those rods. Lastly, we'll put the aiming bar mount with the long side pointing to the same side that the Velcro strap is on. And then the aiming bar, remember, it slides onto it. To slide this on, we can rotate, put it in position, and then slide on and rotate. There we go. I happen to have an unusual lens on here that you won't have. This, what is missing from this one is a 10 times, which will be on your unit. That's it. She's done. Let me know if you've got any questions about this process, and enjoy the little extra reach that it's going to provide. So without the coarse focus in place, you have to remember that when you switch from the 2x lens to the 4x lens, you actually have to move back about 15 millimeters, about 1.5 centimeters, in order to get the cantilever in focus. You could use the fine focus control for that entire excursion as long as you started out with the entire assembly very far forward. I prefer not to do that. I just slide the entire assembly back. I'm comfortable with doing this because once the image is on the screen using the 4x lens, I can see whether the entirety of the cantilever is in focus. Remember, we have to have all of the cantilever in focus. So if you get the bottom top edge of the cantilever in focus down here, but it's out of focus up there, according to the written instructions, I go over this, you have to rotate the entire microscope in order to get it all in focus. Very important to have that done right in order to get your measurements accurate. Lastly, if you are at all a little concerned about the microscope assembling being forward heavy, it's an easy solve. Just put pliers and put it right there to add some mass. This way you can still have access to the fine focus control, and you've added plenty of mass in order to keep it from falling forward. I haven't personally had this problem, but I could see a couple situations where you might be concerned about it.